Mr. President, great to see you again, sir.
Thank you.
The Supreme Court, this big deal, Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court now authenticating that draft opinion by Sam Alito, in essence overturning Roe v. Wade. Were you surprised to see this?
Well, we don't know exactly if that's true because it was certainly something that they're working on. It would imagine, I don't think anyone made it up. It sounded like him. He's a great man, by the way. He's a tremendous guy. But as a justice, he's just fantastic. And you have some great ones up there now. But we have to find out what that means. And is somebody going to do something about it? Are they going to try and change it? Is it real? Nobody really knows, and they don't know who leaked it. I will say the leak was a terrible thing. You're just not used to that for the Supreme Court. We see it so much leaking in our world, in your world, in my world. And although not so much now, it's very interesting. You know, you try and cover those leaks, but you've never seen it, or they've rarely seen it in the Supreme Court. It was very shocking, I think. I think it was a very bad thing for the court.
Well, Chuck Schumer says it's all your fault, of course, if Roe v. Wade gets overturned. Obviously, he's talking about those three pro-life Supreme Court justices.
Yeah.
Impact your thoughts?
Well, a lot of people are very happy about that. So some people maybe say it's my fault, and some people say, thank you very much.
Yeah, for sure. Let me ask you a little bit about this Biden and his this cognitive issue. You mentioned the other day you want to see a result or you want to see a test taken. Do you believe he's mentally unfit for office? And do you think the 25th Amendment should be invoked?
It's such a nice question. But look, I think that so much is riding right now that somebody that's running for office before you have the election, I think you have to take a test and you have to be sharp. When I look at what you're dealing with, I know them all, I know every leader, they're at the top of their games. I mean, some are nice, some aren't nice, some are vicious, and they're all smart. And you cannot be like we are now. This war in Ukraine should have never happened. 100% would not have happened with me. And I decided to take one because the fake news was having fun no matter what you did. And I took one, and you know, it was an amazing thing. They now call me a dictator and other things, but they don't call you stupid because I aced it. And you got to ace it. You got to do well. If you're going to be president, and you know the Chinese system, you start from very young, and it's like a big pyramid. And the smartest guy gets to the top. It's sort of an amazing system, okay? Nothing I recommend strongly, but you know, you're dealing with these people that are top of the world, top of the game. And I watched what happened in Europe, and I watched the decisions that are made, and you watch the news conferences, and this country's going to hell, just so you understand. This country's going to hell between the border, between the Afghanistan removal, the way we got out, giving the Taliban $85 billion worth of weapons. You know, they're now the number one munitions seller in the world. Did you know that? Number one in the world. They're selling the stuff we gave them. And we fled. It was like we fled. Not one soldier was killed in 18 months. I spoke to the leader. I said, don't do it, in a very strong way. I said, don't do it. Abdul. He said, don't do it, Abdul. But we had 13 soldiers killed. We had many horribly injured. And, you know, nobody ever talks about them. They lose legs and they lose arms and beyond that. And nobody talks about them. No, I think having a test is a very good idea.
And mentally unfit, you don't want to judge.
I don't want to say it. Let them take a test. You know, these tests are good. They've done for 100 years, and they have them down to a science. I mean, they're good, and they're not easy. You have to be sharp, and people that are in that position have to be sharp.
Yeah. The Ministry of Truth, as they're calling it, this disinformation governance board that you've heard about, what do you make of it exactly? You wonder if they're going to go after like a Truth Social. I mean, this is scary stuff. This is Orwellian stuff. What's your
Well,
take?
especially the person that's doing it, because she's a political operative, and it's no good anyway, because who knows who this person is? But they picked a person that would be the last choice of certainly a certain party. And actually, probably of both parties, because most people believe it's called free speech. You have to have free speech. So I think that it's not even believable that we're talking about this subject, if you want to know the truth. Who would have believed that we're talking about somebody that's going to censure people over a long period of time, and very strong? Now they're saying, oh, no, it's just a recommendation. That's where it all began. I guess that's what they used to say in Russia. That's what they said in the Soviet Union, right? We're just going to do a little bit. No, we can't do that. We can't do that. That's a horrible thing.
Imagine you, in your administration, introducing some sort of ministry of truth. What the media would have done with
Well, I have a ministry of truth. It's called Truth. It's called Truth Social, which, by the way, is doing very well. I don't know if you've seen the numbers.
Yeah, #1 app.
Would you get me? It's a #1. Can you believe it? #1. TikTok was 2, Twitter was 3 or 4. #1 app, and it's great. And I hope you people are all going to get it.
What's your advice to Elon
We have a
Musk?
strong Christian influence there. You know what the
On Truth
influence-
Social is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh.
You know what it is? Me. I have strong Christian influence. Go ahead.
Fair enough. What's your advice to Elon Musk, by the way, on Twitter?
Well, I like him. I helped him when he had difficulty. I think he's a very good guy. I'm not going on Twitter because I have Truth. I think Truth is a better modern day version. But I think he's a really good guy. Paid a lot of money for that, and I hope it works out.
Let me ask you a little bit about
It's not really as directly a competition. We're also looking at competing with Facebook and competing with others too.
So you don't see
But
that direct
truth is,
competition?
well, everything. Look, everything's competition, right? Everything. You can probably say the network's a competition. Everything, but we're looking at beyond Twitter, and we have a system that's a very modern, very updated system. If you look at pictures, or if you look at prints, or if you look at, they look better. Truth has really been amazing. I mean, to be #1 on the Apple app is pretty incredible, I think.
The culture, as we like to say, kind of going to hell in a handbasket. I mean, this transgender movement is out of control. Joe Biden thinks there's at least 3 genders. I would think more. What do you make of it specifically? And I am curious as it relates to whether or not you see this transgender movement, not transgender people, but the movement is evil, unbiblical. A lot of people say this is not the way it should be.
It's not the way it should be, that's for sure. It is a terrible thing. I mean, especially where you're taking children that don't even have this period to form. And in many cases, I hear 60% of the cases, later life, they say, why did they do this to me? 60%. No, I think it's a terrible thing. I think what's happened with Disney and what Disney's doing, Walt Disney is looking down.
What's he thinking?
He's not happy, okay? Walt Disney said, whatever happened to my beautiful Magic Kingdom? He's not happy. No, it's a terrible thing. Who would think some of your questions are excellent, but who would think you would even have to ask questions about things like this? Yeah. You could also ask about men playing women's sports, competing against women in sports, and you see the records that are being broken by 38 seconds.
Right.
A swim record that's lasted for years, it gets broken by 38 seconds, which is, unthinkable. When you see some of the things that they talk about today, you can't even believe the questions being asked. It's so ridiculous.
Well, and here's another question. Now we're talking about, are the left in this country okay with what they call this word grooming, right? This grooming. In other words, talking to little kids about LGBT lifestyle. What's your view on the grooming comments that a lot of conservatives think this is grooming by the left?
Yeah, I'm opposed to it, obviously. I'm opposed to many of the things that we talk about. I can think of nothing actually that I'd be for. This is a different world. It's a new world. And I think it's actually going to be shut out. You know how it's going to get shut out? Common sense. It's common sense. But I think it's going, and I think religion will help shut it out. Nobody has done more for Christianity. Nobody has done more for religion of all type than me. And they're really doing things now to, and I've always said it, they are against organized religion. They're against Christianity. They're against Israel. There's no question. You look at what's going on with Israel. If they go back into that Iran nuclear deal, Israel is going to have a very tough time surviving unless something happens. And that would be a very bad thing.
Election integrity. I got to get to it. Senator Rick Scott said the other day that he believes that liberal activists and the Biden DOJ are using lawsuits and charges of racism to basically weaken all of these election integrity laws. Do you believe Democrats are playing the race card in this?
Well, they've always played the race card.
And even on in
They
what they're
played,
doing
of
now.
course, in this, but they played the race card for as long as I can remember. And they play it so much that people don't take it so seriously anymore. And that's a positive thing, not a negative thing. They say it about people that are less racist than any people anywhere in the world, okay? You're a racist. And whenever you hear that term, that means you're winning, because what they're doing is that's their last card. And they've used it with me, and it's failed very badly. But they play the race card for many years, as long as I can remember.
Yeah. Anthony Fauci, Senator Rand Paul said this, it's been 9 months ago. He said that he's concerned that Fauci lied to Congress over gain-of-function research. He wants the DOJ to, in essence, start some sort of criminal referral on that. Are you concerned about Fauci? Do you want him investigated and looked at here in terms of lying to Congress?
Well, Rand has taken it very, very, to a very high level. And he does feel that way. I spoke to Rand about it. When Fauci came with me, when he's been there for 40 years or something. Mm-hmm. But when he was with me, he had very little to say. I didn't have him in a position like he is now. And actually, he said, keep the country open to China. And I said, no, which I had 21 people in the room. Almost all of them said, keep it open. Mm-hmm. I saved hundreds of thousands of lives by closing it to China. Then I saw what was going on in France and Italy, and I closed it to them. Mm-hmm. And frankly, we made some great decisions. We made great decisions. I think it's one of the things we worked so hard, because this horrible China virus, COVID, whatever you want to call it, China virus is a far more accurate term, but it came over and nobody had any idea. And what we did in terms of therapeutics, what we did with Operation Warp Speed, and it's been given credit, but I think we haven't been given the kind of credit we should get.
No, I agree. On Fauci, though, do you want to see if GOP took over the House in November after the midterms, would you want to see an investigation into this?
Well, you can look, but look, Fauci is a different kind of a guy. He's a liberal Democrat. He's been there for many, many years. I didn't use him very much from the standpoint of, now they've given him this great power where he's calling a lot of shots. He would give recommendations to me, and generally speaking, if you look at his recommendations, for instance, at the beginning, he didn't want masks. He was totally anti-mask. He was saying masks don't work. That went on for 3 or 4 months. And then he became a radical masker. I said, so tell me, I lost a little bit of confidence when I heard that, because I said, that man over there, what's your story on masks? No masks. Then 4 months later, he's saying everybody should put masks on your ears, your nose, your hair. I mean, as many, he went a little wild. So no, I'd let Rand just fight that out. He can do whatever he wants on that. But Rand feels very strongly about it.
Let me ask some political questions real quick. The midterm elections, the media is going to be looking at your one-loss record. You've endorsed a lot of candidates. What's your sense here in terms of how this will play out, and how much stock do you put in this win-loss record of yours?
So my record is unparalleled. My endorsements, it's totally unparalleled. Nobody's ever had a record like this. I'm almost unblemished. When I endorse somebody, they go up. J.D. Vance I endorsed. Now, that will be, I don't know when you're going to be broadcasting this, but that'll be tonight, you'll know. So we'll know. But J.D. was down by about 12 points, and I endorsed him, and now he's leading, and we'll see what happens. Dr. Oz is a fantastic guy, likewise, and he was down, and I endorsed him, and now he's up. But they're spending like $50 million to beat him. It almost seems unfair, you want to know the truth, but they're spending a tremendous amount of money. Ted Budd in North Carolina, it wasn't that he was down, people didn't know him, he's fantastic. Now he's up 17 points, so he's doing really fantastically. So I have many. Carrie Lake is doing a great job in Arizona.
She's a pistol.
Well, she's fantastic, and her big thing is election integrity and the rigging of the 2020 election. I mean, she's literally, if you ask her, how are your children, she says the election was rigged and stolen in 2020. She's totally on that message, and I understand that message. We had somebody named Mo Brooks who was on that message. I endorsed him, and he went up 54 points. He was leading by 54 points. Nobody knows that. And then one day, I think he hired Romney or McCain people or something. Somebody gave him some very bad advice at a rally. He said, let's not talk about the 2020 rigged election. Who knows what it was? Let's go on to the future. And he got booed out of the stadium. He got booed. I've never heard booing like this. I said, by the way, I don't know what you said, but you just lost the election. And he went way, way down, and I unendorsed him, actually. He should have never said that. This is a guy with a 54-point lead, and he hires Mitt Romney's people? I mean, tell me about that.
Let me ask you a little bit about the state of the Republican Party. I remember Joe Biden saying months ago at this press conference he had that he couldn't believe all these Republicans still afraid of Trump. It's like, oh, they were all afraid of Trump. should Republicans be afraid of you, the ones that are not in line with you and your views?
Well, if they want to win politically, probably, because if I endorse them, they win, and if I don't endorse them, they don't win. I mean, that's almost 100% of the case. And I only, I view it as a very important function. If I like somebody and if I think somebody's good, I'll endorse. Otherwise, I don't do it. I don't endorse everybody. Even if they're going to win, I don't endorse everybody. It's a very important, it's like a great honor it's been bestowed upon me, because this has never happened before. An endorsement, they say for years, I've heard this statement for 25 years, an endorsement isn't worth the paper it's written on. And yet when I endorse, look at Ron DeSantis, was great. Look at other people, great. Look at, some bad ones like Kemp. I endorsed this guy Kemp. He's been a disaster. On election integrity in particular, he was horrible. I think he cost us the Senate. He cost, in my opinion, he cost me, the state, a big factor. He did a consent decree that was a disaster. He wouldn't do anything for the Republican Senate where they wanted to have a special session on election integrity. No, I endorsed him. He was dead, and he won. So, not all of them are good endorsements, to be honest. But I think 95% of them are good endorsements.
Yeah, a few last questions. Ron DeSantis, looking ahead to 2024, you'll make that decision sometime in the future. If he gets in the race and you're in the race, does he have a shot?
Well, I don't
if you're
want
both
to say
in the
that.
race, if you're both in the
we were
race,
just together this weekend. It was interesting. He
Yeah.
came to Mar-a-Lago for something, and it was very nice. We have a good relationship. Look, when Ron asked me to endorse him, he was at 3. Immediately after I endorsed him, he went up to 71, and the race was over. It was over that minute.
I remember that.
So I think Ron knows that, and Ron and I have a very good relationship. I like him a lot.
Yeah, the media wants. You know what the media wants to do.
Well, no, I know they like the narrative. Sometimes they'll say I like him, and it never gets put in. No, I like Ron. I have a good relationship with Ron, and I'm proud of the fact that I gave him an endorsement. Ron was at 3. It was over for him, and I endorsed him. He went up to 71 immediately. In fact, the man that he beat had it made, the agriculture commissioner. You know that. And I saw him a year later. He said when that endorsement was given, it was like a bomb went off, to use a bad term, but it was like a bomb went off. He said the race was over. And he was at 38, and he had $28 million in the bank. Ron was at 3, and he had no money in the bank. And when I endorsed him, the race changed. Then I got him past Stacey Abrams. And Ron knows that better than anybody. And I think that, Ron and I have a very good relationship, I will tell you.
Speaking of relationships, how is that relationship today with Mike Pence?
Honestly, I haven't spoken to Mike in a long time.
What's a long time, would you say, roughly? I don't want people to start saying what a long time is. Months?
A long time is 4 or 5 months. I haven't spoken to him in a long time. And he's a nice man. He disappointed me on one thing because I think he should have sent the votes back to the legislatures. I think you might very well have had a different, today you would have, when you look at what's going on in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and all these different states, when you look at what Catherine Engelbrecht has found, I don't know if you've had her on your show, but you should, what she's done with ballot harvesting, she's found millions of votes. And today it would be a no contest. But it's interesting, they said he had to be a conveyor belt. He had no choice, no matter what. If it was fraud, he has to send them up to the Oak Row, Mitch McConnell, right? And he had no choice. And then I see a month ago, a group got together so that the vice president can't do that. I said, well, wait a minute. I thought he had no choice. In other words, there was nothing that gave him the right to do it. But they're working on something so that he can't do it, meaning a vice president can't do it. So I was right. He did have a choice. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been working on it.
If he gets into the race in 2024, he's thinking about it. I'm assuming you're going to say, I don't want to put words in your mouth, no shot here if he gets in the race in 2024?
I don't want to say. Look, if Mike got in, it would be, I think it would be a hard one for him. I think it would be a hard one. I understand where the base is. I love the base. The base loves me. I think it would be hard, but Mike was a good guy. I thought he was a very good vice president. He was my friend. I haven't spoken to him. I just endorsed his brother. His brother's a congressman and a good guy, Greg. But no, Mike is a very good guy, but he disappointed me greatly. And I think he disappointed a lot of people greatly.
Yeah. Let me ask you as we wrap up here, the God question, if you will. Look, there are so many evangelicals that saw you When you were president, it was a divine appointment. They saw it as for such a time as this. You're not in the Oval Office now. Have you kind of thought about, I mean, what is God up to exactly? Have you kind of,
So
how do you see it in
it's a-
spiritual
so-
terms?
Sort of a great question for a number of reasons. People that weren't sure, because I wasn't a politician, so I wasn't really out there, but people when I first came in that weren't sure at all are now my biggest fans. Evangelicals and others are now my biggest fans, especially since everything I said was right. By the way, and I'm not just talking about energy and the border, I'm talking about religion. I said these people are against evangelicals. I said they're against Israel. I said they're against organized religion, frankly, but they're against all of the things that you and I and most of your viewers stand for. And when I said that during debates and elsewhere, people sort of weren't sure. I turned out to be right. And the other thing is, I've had many, many evangelicals and Christians. I've had many, many Jewish people tell me I was far better than anybody ever thought. They say the best ever at helping what we love. We love God. We love our religion. And no president was better. I mean, I wiped out the Johnson Amendment, which was so bad, which gave huge penalties to people if they spoke in a little wrong manner, people that we respect, like pastors, ministers, people that we respect. And I've had many people say, as good as I think we were, they said, you were the best at it, you were the best, and they want me back.
Or do you think you'll take them up on that offer?
And by the way, you're going to have a very important decision coming out of the Supreme Court.
Right.
And I put on 3 judges, 3 justices that I don't know. Again, this was very early. Nobody knows what this means. Is it the real deal? Is it not the right deal or the real deal? But it seems to be a leak. It seems to be accurate. We're going to find out. I think the concept of a leak is despicable, by the way. But I put 3 justices on and almost 300 federal judges. We changed the whole system.
Yeah.
But I've had great support from the evangelical community.
Right.
So the evangelicals, the frankly Jewish people,
Yeah.
people of faith have loved the job I did.
Very nice. Thank
And
you,
it's
sir.
my honor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Trump.
Thank you very
Good.
much.
Well, thank you very much. And on behalf of Melania, myself, and our entire family, I want to thank you all for being here tonight. It's a very special occasion at a very special place. You and all of those watching are the heart and soul of this incredible movement and the greatest country in the history of the world. It's very simple. There has never been anything like it. This great movement of ours, never been anything like it, and perhaps there will never be anything like it again. There's never been anything to compete with what we have all done. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and my fellow citizens, America's comeback starts right now. 2 years ago, when I left office, the United States stood ready for its golden age. Our nation was at the pinnacle of power, prosperity, and prestige, towering above all rivals, vanquishing all enemies, and striding into the future, confident and so strong. In 4 short years, everybody was doing great. Men, women, African Americans, Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans, everybody was thriving like never before. There was never a time like this. We turned the page on decades of globalist sellouts and one-sided trade deals, lifted millions out of poverty, and together we built the greatest economy in the history of the world. When the virus hit our shores, I took decisive action and saved lives and the U.S. economy. And by October of the same year, America was roaring back with the #1 fastest economic recovery ever recorded. How about that? All of the incoming administration, and all they had to do was just sit back and watch. Inflation was non-existent. Our southern border was by far the strongest ever. And because the border was so tight, drugs were coming into our country at the lowest level in many, many years. Importantly, after decades of rising energy costs, the United States had finally attained the impossible dream of American energy independence, which soon would have turned into energy dominance. For the first time in memory, China was reeling and back on its heels. You've never seen that before, because the United States was outdoing them on every single front, and China was paying billions and billions of dollars in taxes and tariffs. The farmers know that because they got 28 billion of it. No president had ever sought or received $1 for our country from China until I came along, and we were getting hundreds of billions of dollars. Many people think that because of this, China played a very active role in the 2020 election. Just saying, just saying. Sure, that didn't happen. Instead of jobs and factories leaving America for China, they were, for the first time ever, leaving China for America. Businesses were pouring back because of our historic tax and regulation cuts, the biggest in both categories in history, bigger even than what Ronald Reagan was able to produce, and he produced a lot. China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea were in check and respected. They respected the United States, and quite honestly, they respected me. I knew them well. I knew them well. The vicious ISIS caliphate, which no president was able to conquer, was decimated by me and our great warriors in less than 3 weeks, and al-Baghdadi, its founder, was hunted down and killed. North Korea had not launched a single long-range missile since my summit with Chairman Kim Jong-un nearly 3 years before. We developed a relationship, and that's a good thing, not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Very good thing, actually, because look at what's happening today. My opponents made me out to be a warmonger and just a terrible person who would immediately go into war. They said during the 2016 campaign that if he becomes president, there will never be a war within weeks, and we will have wars like you've never seen before. It will happen immediately, and yet I've gone decades without a war, the first president to do it for that long a period. The world was at peace, America was prospering, and our country was on track for an amazing future, because I made big promises to the American people, and unlike other presidents, I kept my promises. I kept them. Thank you very much. Under our leadership, we were a great and glorious nation, something you haven't heard for quite a long period of time. We were a strong nation, and importantly, we were a free nation. But now we are a nation in decline. We are a failing nation. For millions of Americans, the past 2 years under Joe Biden have been a time of pain, hardship, anxiety, and despair. As we speak, inflation is the highest in over 50 years. Gas prices have reached the highest levels in history and expect them to go much higher now that the strategic national reserves, which I filled up, have been virtually drained in order to keep gasoline prices lower just prior to the election. Joe Biden has intentionally surrendered our energy independence. There is no longer even a thought of dominance, and we are now begging for energy help from foreign nations, many of whom find us detestable. Our southern border has been erased, and our country is being invaded by millions and millions of unknown people, many of whom are entering for a very bad and sinister reason. And you know what that reason is. We will be paying a big price for this invasion into our country for years to come. Hundreds of thousands of pounds of deadly drugs, including very lethal fentanyl, are flooding across the now open and totally porous southern border. The blood-soaked streets of our once great cities are cesspools of violent crimes, which are being watched all over the world as leadership of other countries explain that this is what America and democracy is really all about. How sad. The United States has been embarrassed, humiliated, and weakened for all to see. The disasters in Afghanistan, perhaps the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, where we lost lives, left Americans behind, and surrendered $85 billion worth of the finest military equipment anywhere in the world. And Ukraine, which would have never happened if I were your president, are something and even the Democrats admit that. That's something I've seen them admit over and over again. But our enemies are speaking of us with scorn and laughter and derision because of those two events. But there are many more. Even just today, a missile was sent in, probably by Russia, to Poland, 50 miles into Poland, and people are going absolutely wild and crazy, and they're not happy. They are very, very angry. Now we have a president who falls asleep at global conferences, was held in contempt by the British Parliament over Afghanistan. Thanks to the words of wisdom, he said thank you to the wrong country for inviting him to a major summit on the environment, of all things. They fly for days to get there, and then he calls the country a name that was actually a country on another continent. And he's leading us to the brink of nuclear war, a concept unimaginable just 2 short years ago. You cannot mention the nuclear word. It's too devastating. The Green New Deal and the environment, which they say may affect us in 300 years, is all that is talked about, and yet nuclear weapons, which would destroy the world immediately, are never even discussed as a major threat. Can you imagine? They say the ocean will rise 1/8 of an inch over the next 200 to 300 years. But don't worry about nuclear weapons that can take out entire countries with one shot. Something is wrong with their thinking. Under Biden and the radical Democrats, America has been mocked, derided, and brought to its knees, perhaps like never before. But we are here tonight to declare that it does not have to be this way. It does not have to be this way. Two years ago, we were a great nation, and soon we will be a great nation again. The decline of America is being forced upon us by Biden and the radical left lunatics running our government right into the ground. This decline is not a fate we must accept. When given the choice, boldly, clearly, and directly, I believe the American people will overwhelmingly reject the left's platform of national ruin, and they will embrace our platform of national greatness and glory to America. Glory. Exactly 1 week ago, our citizens voted in the important midterm elections, and despite a ridiculously long and unnecessary period of waiting, far longer, in fact, than any third world country, just a short time ago, the Republicans won back control of the House of Representatives. And it was with a great Trump-endorsed candidate, Congressman-elect Kevin Kiley, who is a fantastic person, And I'm very happy it was his vote that did it. But we now won back. This happened just an hour ago. Much criticism is being placed on the fact that the Republican Party should have done better, and frankly, much of this blame is correct. But the citizens of our country have not yet realized the full extent and gravity of the pain our nation is going through, and the total effect of the suffering is just starting to take hold. They don't quite feel it yet, but they will very soon. I have no doubt that by 2024, it will sadly be much worse, and they will see much more clearly what happened and what is happening to our country, and the voting will be much different. 2024. Are you getting ready? And I am too. I do want to point out that in the midterms, my endorsement success rate was 232 wins and only 22 losses. You don't hear that from the media. And this is an elegant night and an elegant place, and I'm not going to use the term fake news media. So we're going to keep it very elegant. But you don't hear that from the media. But I think you will, because people are starting to see what happened. That's some score. And in the primaries was 98.6%. But they were still trying to blame me. And the reason for the success and that unprecedented success rate is that the Trump administration changed our nation on trade, on securing the border. We're the strongest, safest border ever in the history of our country. On Islamic terrorism, we had practically, just about, not that I can think of, no Islamic attacks, terrorist attacks during the Trump administration. And in fact, we got along very well with the various countries, including coming up with the Abraham Accords. That's a great thing, the Abraham Accords. But it's because of cutting taxes and cutting regulations at the highest level ever, and on building the greatest economy. Any time in the history of the world, there's never been an economy like we had just 2 years ago. Despite the outcome in the Senate, we cannot lose hope, and we must all work very hard for a gentleman and a great person named Herschel Walker, a fabulous human being who loves our country and will be a great United States Senator. Herschel Walker, get out and vote for Herschel, and he deserves it. He was an incredible athlete. He'll be an even better senator. Get out and vote for Herschel Walker. We elected a group of incredibly talented America First leaders who will be stars of our party for many years to come. In the popular vote, another thing that's not discussed for the House, we must remember that Republicans won 5 million more votes, the largest margin in many, many years, over the Democrats. 5 million more votes, that's a big thing. Breaking the radical Democrats' grip on Congress was crucial. So in other words, because of our great congressmen and all of our great congressmen and congresswomen, we have taken over Congress. Nancy Pelosi has been fired. Isn't that nice? I told them, I said, if you just keep a little bit lower standard, you're going to have a big victory. They said, let's win by 40 seats. Let's win by 50. I said, if you win by 2 seats, be happy. But she's on her way to another country right now. She's been fired. But we always have known that this was not the end. It was only the beginning of our fight to rescue the American dream. And it's a word you don't use. 2 words. I don't want to be Joe. It's 2 words, American dream. That was not good what he did. There are a lot of bad things, like going to Idaho and saying, welcome to the state of Florida. I really love it. In order to make America great and glorious again, I am tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States. Thank you, kids. Thank you. All of you. Thank you. Thank you. So many incredible friends and family here tonight. It's such a beautiful thing. Some people say, how do you speak before so many people all the time? When there's love in the room, it's really easy, if you want to know the truth. It really is. You ought to try it sometime. Together, we will be taking on the most corrupt forces and entrenched interests imaginable. Our country is in a horrible state. We're in grave trouble. This is not a task for a politician or a conventional candidate. This is a task for a great movement that embodies the courage, confidence, and the spirit of the American people. This is a movement. This is not for any one individual. This is a job for tens of millions of proud people working together from all across the land and from all walks of life, young and old, black and white, Hispanic and Asian, many of whom we have brought together for the very, very first time. If you look at the numbers, if you look at what's happened with Hispanic, with African American, with Asian, and just look at what's happening. This is a party that has become much bigger, much stronger, much more powerful, can do much more good for our country. This is a job for grandmothers and construction workers, firefighters, builders, teachers, doctors, and farmers who cannot stay quiet any longer. You can't stay quiet any longer. You're angry about what's happening to our country. Our country is being destroyed before your very eyes. It's a job for every aspiring young person and every hard-working parent, for every entrepreneur and underappreciated police officer who is ready to shout for safety in America. The police are being treated so badly. These are great people. They can straighten out the crime. They're the ones that know how to do it. We have to give them back their respect and their dignity. This will not be my campaign. This will be our campaign all together. Because the only force strong enough to defeat the massive corruption we are up against is you, the American people. It's true. The American people, the greatest people on earth, we love them all. And we love both sides. We're going to bring people together. We're going to unify people. And it was happening in the previous administration, previous to the previous. And what was bringing them together was success. Prior to COVID coming in, the people were calling me, were calling me. You wouldn't believe it. People that were so far left, I figured they'd never speak to me and I would never speak to them. But our success was so incredible, like never before. And then COVID started coming in from China. We call it the China virus. Some people call it other things. But it was devastating, and we built it back and did an incredible job. But when people say Republicans or Democrats or liberals or conservatives. I say we can all get together. And we were doing that. That was happening just prior because the success was greater than this country has ever had. We were leapfrogging China and leapfrogging everybody else, and everybody wanted a piece of it. But just as I promised in 2016, I am your voice. I am your voice. The Washington establishment wants to silence us, but we will not let them do that. What we have built together over the past 6 years is the greatest movement in history because it is not about politics. It's about our love for this great country, America, and we're not going to let it fail. I am running because I believe the world has not yet seen the true glory of what this nation can be. We have not reached that pinnacle, believe it or not. In fact, we can go very far. We're going to have to go far. First, we have to get out of this ditch. And once we're out, you'll see things that nobody imagined for any country. It's called the United States of America, and it's an incredible place. We are Americans, and we do not have to endure what has taken place in Washington, D.C. This is our country, our government, and the corridors of power, they're our corridors. They're not their corridors. These are our corridors. And we are coming to take those corridors back. So from now until Election Day in 2024, which will come very quickly, we'll go, look at how time flies, look how fast it's all going. I will fight like no one has ever fought before. We will defeat the radical left Democrats that are trying to destroy our country from within, and likewise protect us all. We want to protect us. We have to be protected from all of those nations out there that are looking to destroy us from beyond our shores. There are lots of nations that hate us gravely. And that's the problem. When they look at us in disarray like we are right now, when we go to them begging for oil and we have more liquid gold under our feet than they have or any other nation has, and we don't use it because we're going to them, it's crazy what's happening. We can't let it continue. Joe Biden is the face of left-wing failure and Washington corruption. He had a big G20 dinner tonight. Everybody flew over to wherever they flew over, and guess what? He never showed up. They're still looking for him. What's going on? G20, I used to love that, the leaders. They used to make deals for our country like you wouldn't believe. It was one, give me the next one, give me the next one. And we got them to stop taking advantage of our country. Every nation took advantage of our country. We renegotiated deals with Mexico and Canada, USMCA. We got rid of the worst trade deal ever made. NAFTA, the worst trade deal ever made. That's why the farmers love Trump, because we did a great job, but manufacturers also. And we did a deal, we restructured our terrible deal with Japan, and I did it with Prime Minister Abe, a great man who unfortunately is so sad. He was a great friend of mine, but a great man, loved his country so much, but we restructured and made it a really terrific deal, and with South Korea and so many other countries. And the best of all was what we did to China. We made an incredible deal, but after COVID, I don't even bother talking about it because the devastation that caused for the entire world was too much to bear. I will ensure that Joe Biden does not receive 4 more years in 2020. Can't do it. Our country could not take that. And I say that not in laughter. I say that in tears. Our country could not take 4 more years. It can only take so much. It's all very fragile to start off with. It can only take so much. In 2020, I received the largest number of votes of any sitting president in history by a lot. And we will do it again, but with even more votes this time. Many have noted that huge gains we have made with Latino voters, and I believe we will set even greater records with this crucial vote in 2024. The Hispanic voter, the Latino voter has been unbelievable. Great people, very entrepreneurial people, and they want security. And everyone thought when I did the wall, I built the wall, and they thought, oh, that would hurt me with the Hispanic vote. No, it helped me because they understood. They wanted safety. They wanted security. And they understood the border better than anybody else. So they were amazed that we started that trend, and now we're continuing with that trend. You look at what we've done in Florida, what everybody's doing now in Florida and Texas, along the border in Texas, won every single community. I won every single community. Governor of Texas called. Great gentleman, just got reelected. And he said to me, I'd like to talk to you for a second. Well, he said, you've done something that nobody else has done. You've won every single area along the borders, the longest since Reconstruction. I said, Reconstruction? I guess you call that the Civil War? That's what I call it? That's what I call it. Governor Abbott, very good man, and he's working hard, but it's horrible because what's happening is they're just sending hundreds of thousands of people right through his state, right through Arizona, right through all of the states. What's happening is they're coming up all of the states. And we can't have it anymore. This campaign will be about issues, vision, and success, and we will not stop, we will not quit until we've achieved the highest goals and made our country greater than it has ever been before, and we can do that. We can do it. Our victory will be built upon big ideas, bold ambitions, and daring dreams for America's future. We need daring dreams. It is not enough merely to complain or oppose. We don't want to be critics. We don't want to be complainers. I never wanted to be a critic. I never respected critics. They tell people what's wrong, but they can't do it themselves. We will win because we will fight with every measure of our strength and with every ounce of our energy to lift up the working men and working women of America and to restore the fabric of this nation. The radical left Democrats have embraced an extreme ideology of government domination and control. Our approach is the opposite, one based on freedom, values, individual responsibility, and just plain common sense. It's common sense. In 2 years, the Biden administration has destroyed the U.S. economy, just destroyed it. With victory, we will again build the greatest economy ever. It will take place quickly. We will build the greatest economy ever. And if you remember, I did it twice. I did it before COVID and then handed off something where the stock market was higher than just prior to COVID coming in. And we did it twice, and we will do it again, but this time we'll do it bigger, stronger, better than anybody can even imagine. And one of the beautiful things of the pause, if there is such a thing as a beautiful thing, but one of the important factors of the pause is that we see how bad they've done. So we will be able to do it properly, and it will be much easier. Everybody will agree with us because everybody sees what a bad job has been done during this 2-year period, and it will be a 4-year period. Everybody sees that. It will be much easier for us to do what has to be done. We will immediately tackle inflation and bring down to a level that it was, we were at 0, but actually the best number is 1%. Do you know that? You don't want it really 0. But we were at 0. We actually got it to exactly 1%, the perfect number. One thing every economist agrees, don't have it 0, have it like at 1%. They even say 1 to 2, but I said, let's do 1. And we had it at 1%, and we had it there for a long period of time, and we had the value of the dollar. We had it so that this country could make a lot of money, and I fought other countries where they devalued their dollar, or they devalued their currency, whether it was the pound or whether it was the yuan or the yen. And I used to fight like cats and dogs with the leaders of other countries because they were stealing from us. When they did that, they had artificial devaluations of their currency. It's a very important thing. I haven't even heard it mentioned in 2 years. That's a very important thing. It's very hard for us to compete when they do that artificially. And they had to pay a big price when they did it. And they never really did it for very long. I said, we're not going to do business with you anymore as a country. And they believed me. And they let it go back up. Instead of putting America last, as the Biden administration has done very, very openly and bravely, because I can't imagine saying, let's put America last. I think it takes courage. We will again put America first. Every policy. Thank you very much. We do love our country, isn't it? That's why we're here. I didn't need this. I had a very nice, easy life. This is something I didn't need, and a lot of you people don't need either, but we love our country. We have to take care of our country. We have to save our country. Every policy must be geared toward that which supports the American worker, the American family, and businesses, both large and small, and allows our country to compete with other nations on a very level playing field, which we never had until I came along and the Trump administration came along. And now we're losing it. They're moving back into China. They're moving back into these other countries. It's horrible. That means low taxes, low regulations, and fair trade, much of which I've already completed, but now will even greatly enhance. Other countries should pay for the privilege of coming into the American marketplace. They have to pay to come into our country and make all of that money, take it away from us. And thanks to the Trump administration, still the best and the biggest country in the world is what we have. We have the best and the biggest. If you remember, for many years, you can look in your projection books, China was going to take over from us as the largest economy in the world in 2018 or 2019. I said, I don't like that timing. And I was with President Xi, who's now president for life. I call him king. He said, no, I'm not the king. I said, yes, you are the king. You're president for life. It's the same thing. But I said, President, you can't do these things. You can't. Remember, they had China 25. That means China was going to take over virtually the whole world economy by 25. I said, that's not a nice sign. I don't want that sign. They took it down. They took down the whole slogan. Probably will be coming back at some point in the near future. But I found it very insulting. I said, I find that very insulting. On day one, we will end Joe Biden's war on American energy. And you will see, when that happens, you will see energy costs come down. And because energy is so big and so important, you will see inflation dropping. You will see it come down. It's a thing of beauty. And you wouldn't think it's that complicated. Now, what has been complicated a little bit is what's happened to so many other things. I believe originally started by this energy disaster. We were $1.87 a gallon for gasoline, and now it's hitting $5, $6, $7, and even $8, and it's going to go really bad. The socialist disaster known as the Green New Deal, which is destroying our country, and the many crippling regulations that it has spawned, will be immediately terminated so that our country can again breathe and grow and thrive like it should. Very, very much hurting our country. Germany tried it, Germany tried it. They were up for about a year. Remember I sent to Angela. Remember Angela? Do you remember Angela? Nobody's remembering her now. Angela Merkel, I sent her a white flag of surrender. She said, but why do you send this to me, Donald? I said, Angela, I send it to you because this is a flag of surrender. You are getting 78% of your energy from Russia. And when that happens, history has proven that it's not good for Germany. Just take a look over the last 150 years. It hasn't been good. What I didn't know would take place so fast. And Germany closed, as you know, all of its coal-powered plants and its nuclear plants. They closed everything, and now they're building coal plants, and they're building them fast. And China's building a coal plant every week. Every week they open up another, and then they talk about all of the things that they do environmentally. They're watching us die with the Green New Deal, with our windmills and with our solar that doesn't have the power to fire up our great factories and our great plants. They are watching us die, and they're laughing as it happens. Remember, economic security is national security, and that's what it is. We need economic security. That is why we will launch an all-out campaign to eliminate America's dependence on China. We will bring our supply chains, which are a disaster right now. You can't get anything, and good luck getting a turkey for Thanksgiving. Number one, you won't get it, and if you do, you're going to pay 3 to 4 times more than you paid last year. But we will bring our supply chains and manufacturing base back home, as we were strongly doing during the Trump administration, and we will systematically bring back wealth, health, and success to the American middle class and to America itself. Please. Yeah, please sit down. I feel so guilty having you stand. No. No, you've been standing for the whole event. I feel very guilty. I don't want that to happen. To every worker and family struggling to survive in the Biden economy with inflation destroying your family and your life, this campaign will be for you. Help is on the way. Joe Biden has abolished America's borders. We are going to restore and secure America's borders just like we had them before, best ever. We built the wall, and now we will add to it. Now, we built the wall, we completed the wall, and then we said, let's do more, and we did a lot more. And as we were doing it, we had an election that came up, and when they came in, they had 3 more weeks to complete the additions to the wall, which would have been great, and they said, no, we're not going to do that. And that's when I realized that they actually want to have this disaster known as open borders. Hard to believe, isn't it? But one of the reasons we had so much success at the border was because of the fact that 2 things. We got Mexico to give us free of charge 28,000 soldiers. That helps. And President of Mexico is a great gentleman, by the way. Socialist, but that's okay. He can't have everything. But he's a great man and a great friend of mine. But 28,000 soldiers while we were building the wall. And then when the wall was finished, that's how we set all these records. We have records that nobody can even compete with. Right now, it's a disaster. I believe it's 10 million people coming in, not 3 or 4 million people. They're pouring into our country. We have no idea who they are and where they come from. We have no idea what's happening to our country. We're being poisoned. Within moments of my inauguration, catch and release will be gone forever. Remain in Mexico. Remain in Mexico, which was so important. Everybody came in here, they remained here, and they never left. And you couldn't get them, you couldn't find them. I had a policy, remain in Mexico. And if you think it was easy for me to get the president of Mexico to agree to that, it wasn't. But we got it. And they terminated it, can you believe? So now they come in here and they stay, and we have no idea where they are. They get lost. And it's very dangerous for our country. And again, I'll say, we're going to pay a big price someday for what they're doing. We will begin the process of safely removing the illegal alien criminals that have been unlawfully allowed into our country. We have no choice. We have no choice. And in restoring border security, we will stop the flow of deadly drugs and horrible human trafficking, which both have been set upon us like never before. The human trafficking, you think of it as an ancient thing. It's not ancient. Because of the internet, human trafficking is worse than it's ever been in history. And we stop them at the southern border, which is the #1 port all over the world, the southern border. So much comes through the southern border. #1 port, and we stopped them, and now it's at levels that are many, many, many times what it was just 2 years ago. Biden and the radical left had let loose on this total breakdown of law and order. It was a total breakdown of law and order. I will restore public safety in American cities and other communities that need our help. And if they don't want our help, we're going to insist that they take our help this time. Because, you know, the Democrat governors, these are all Democrat cities. The governors and mayors are supposed to ask for the help, and they would never ask for the help. And yet people are being shot and killed at random like nobody's ever seen before. And we sent in the National Guard and Minneapolis and in other places. In Seattle, we went and we were getting ready to go, and they took over part of the city. And the governors, the Democrats, don't want to ever ask to do anything because they don't want to shake things up. In the meantime, the cities are rotting, and they are indeed cesspools of blood. So we're going to go and help them even if they don't want the help. We will give our police back their authority, resources, power, legal protection, and we will give them back their respect. They're great people. And I will immediately launch a no-holds-barred national campaign to dismantle the gangs and clean out the nests of organized street crime. You know, the worst criminals, the worst gangs are MS-13. And under the Barack Hussein Obama administration, they were unable to take them out because their countries where they came from wouldn't take them. And I learned about that in my first day, I actually say. But I learned about it, and I said, which countries? And it was Honduras and Guatemala. It was El Salvador, some others. And I said, how much do we pay them? Sir, you pay them $750 million a year. That's a lot of money. I said, all right, stop payment. We're not paying them anymore because they wouldn't accept them. They would put planes on the runway. So when our plane would come out with these gang members from MS-13, the plane couldn't land because other planes were on the runway. The buses weren't allowed to get through their borders because they had stronger borders than we did by far. They had borders. We don't have borders. They had borders. Other countries that we defend have borders. We defend other countries' borders, but we don't defend our own. But these countries, and I got to know all of the presidents and prime ministers. I got to know them all. And I said, all right, stop payment of the $750 million a year. They won't take them. And you could not get anybody back in because they sent them out. They didn't just come out. They sent them out. They don't want the bad ones. They want to keep their good ones. They don't want the bad ones. These are gang members that will kill, and they like using knives because a knife is more painful than a gun. You've read the stories. MS-13, these are savages. They say, oh, please don't use that name. They're people. No, they're not. These are savages. And so we went along, and I said, stop payment of the $750 million. And I get a call the next morning from the presidents of every country that we're talking about. Sir, there seems to be a misunderstanding. What's the problem? Is there anything we can do? Yeah, you're not taking your MS-13 gang members back that you sent to us. In the caravans, I love the name, I came up with it. I love the name. The caravans, thousands and thousands of people. And in those caravans, you have some rough people. I said, you're not taking them back. Well, we didn't know that this was a problem, sir. Is there anything we can do? I said, yeah, take them back. We would be glad to take them back, sir. They took them back. I still didn't give them the 750, but that's okay. And by the way, now Biden wants to give them $4 billion. They were happy with 750, and now they want to give them $4 billion. Somebody someday is going to explain that one to me. It actually makes you rage with anger when you hear that. They wanted 750 so badly, and now they're getting $4 billion. We will wage war upon the cartels and stop the fentanyl and deadly drugs from killing 200,000 Americans per year. And I will ask Congress for legislation ensuring that drug dealers and human traffickers, these are terrible, terrible, horrible people who are responsible for death, carnage, and crime all over our country. Every drug dealer during his or her life on average will kill 500 people with the drugs they sell, not to mention the destruction of families. But we're going to be asking everyone who sells drugs, gets caught selling drugs, to receive the death penalty for their heinous acts, because it's the only way. We don't need any more blue ribbon committees. We don't need, I don't like to say this, and I don't even know if the American public is ready for it. And a lot of my people say, please don't say that, sir. That's not nice. They kill 500 people each on average. And if you don't do this, in China, when I was with President Xi, I said, President, do you have a drug problem? No, 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 we don't. He looked at me like I didn't know what I was doing. He said, no, we don't have a drug. How come you don't have a drug problem? He said, quick trial. What is a quick trial? I sort of knew. What is a quick trial? That's where if you get caught dealing drugs, you have an immediate and quick trial, and by the end of the day, you're executed. That's a terrible thing. But they have no drug problem. The only drug problem they have is they make the fentanyl that comes into our country, and I had him stopping it. And then when I was gone, nobody ever mentioned it to him again. We were stopping it. That was way down, that number, but they send it in. But they don't have a drug problem. Other countries, like Singapore, has no drug problem. No drug. You ask them, they don't even know what you're talking about when they say drug problem. They don't even know what you're talking about. They have no drug problem. And why should they sell there and risk their lives every time they sell when they can come to the United States and nobody even cares? They can do whatever they want to do and become rich. It's a disgrace. So if you want to get rid of that and also bring down your level of crime, probably 75 or 80%, that's the only answer. No more blue ribbon. I refuse to create them anymore. They were just a joke. It was New York people wanting to be on a committee for publicity reasons. No more blue ribbon committees. That's the only way you're going to solve the problem. And I hope politicians are listening because they should do it quickly. Joe Biden has also proven that he is committed to indoctrinating our children, even using the Department of Justice against parents who object. It's a terrible thing. It's so sad what's happening. When I'm in the White House, our schools will cease pushing critical race theory as they were. Radical civics and gender insanity. Or if they do that, they will lose all federal funding, but we'll get them to stop. And I will be the president who finally fixes education in America. We were doing great. We were starting to really get it right. We will not let men, as an example, participate in women's sports. Is that okay? No men. No men. My people tell me, sir, that's politically incorrect to say. I said, that's okay, I'll say it anyway, if you don't mind. We've had tremendous problems, and you know, it's very unfair to women, just very, very unfair. We will defend the rights of parents, and we will defend the family as the center of American life. But who would think, standing up here, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that a politician, and I don't like to think of myself as a politician, but I guess that's what I am. I hate that thought. But that a politician would be up saying, we will defend parental rights. Of course you're going to defend it. Who would think that we even have to mention this? Who would think it even should be a subject to be talked about? We have to defend parental rights. Can you believe this? As Commander-in-Chief, I will get Biden's radical left ideology out of our military, and I did. And in the first day, they put it back. They signed an executive order, and they put it back. It was gone. We will abolish every Biden COVID mandate and rehire every patriot who was fired from our military with an apology and full back pay. Thank you. And they deserve an apology, and they deserve full back pay, and they'll get it. And unlike Biden possibly getting us into World War III, which can seriously happen, I will keep America out of foolish and unnecessary foreign wars, just as I did for 4 straight years. We will again have peace through strength. That's all it is. As events overseas have shown, To protect our people from the unthinkable threat of nuclear weapons and hypersonic missiles, the United States must also build a state-of-the-art, next-generation missile defense shield. We need it. The power of these missiles and the power of a word that I refuse to say, nuclear. We have to have it. We need a defense shield. And we have to do it, and we actually have the technology, and we're going to build it. Just as I rebuilt our military, I will get this done. I rebuilt our entire military, which nobody talks about. When I got there, we had jet fighters that were 48 years old. We had bombers that were 60 years old. We had bombers where their grandfathers flew them when they were new. And now the grandchild is flying the bomber, but not anymore. But as I have said before, the gravest threats to our civilization are not from abroad, but from within. None is greater than the weaponization of the justice system, the FBI, and the DOJ. We must conduct a top-to-bottom overhaul to clean out the festering rot and corruption of Washington, D.C. Thank you. And I'm a victim, I will tell you. I'm a victim. Think of it. The FBI offered $1 million to Christopher Steele, who wrote the fake dossier, if he will lie and say that the fake dossier was true. And he refused to do it, so it had to be really fake. And then they hired somebody, Demchenko, for $200,000 a year to focus on Trump and to get Trump and other things, including the raid of a very beautiful house that sits right here. The raid of Mar-a-Lago, think of it. And I say, why didn't you raid Bush's place? Why didn't you raid Clinton? 32,000 emails. Why didn't you raid Clinton's place? Why didn't you do Obama, who took a lot of things with him? We will dismantle the deep state and restore government by the people. To further drain the swamp, I will push for a constitutional amendment to impose term limits on members of Congress. It's time. It's time. And I will ask for a permanent ban on taxpayer funding of campaigns, a lifetime ban on lobbying by former members of Congress and cabinet members. No, I see what they make. They leave the White House or they leave Congress and they're paid millions and millions and millions of dollars a year. No, you have to have a ban. We want a ban on members of Congress getting rich by trading stocks with insider information. And many of our great members agree with that. They actually agree with that. And of course, we will do whatever it takes to bring back honesty, confidence, and trust in our elections. To eliminate cheating, I will immediately demand voter ID, same-day voting, and only paper ballots. Only paper ballots. France just had an election, 36 million people voted. It was all done by 10 o'clock in the evening, no complaints. You had a winner, you had a loser. The loser went home. The winner, he's a friend of mine, nice guy. But he was happy, but there was no complaints. And if there is a complaint, you check it out and you can fix it very easily. You can find out what's going on. No, paper ballots, same-day voting, voter ID. So simple. And we want all votes counted by election night. They spend all of the money for machines and all of this stuff, and they end up 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later. By that time, everyone forgot there was even an election. It's horrible. And this doesn't happen. I said it before. It doesn't happen in third world countries. They do better than we do. It's horrible what's happening with our election and election process. And I'll get that job done. That's a very personal job for me. I take that very personally. But this is just the beginning of our national greatness agenda, and that's what we call it, a national greatness agenda, because our country can be greater than it ever was. Our country was great. Our country's not great anymore. Our country's a laughingstock right now. But our country can be greater than it ever was before, by a lot. There will be more, much more to come in the months ahead. There are so many things we can do. Many of them are not even hard to implement. The journey ahead of us will not be easy. Anyone who truly seeks to take on this rigged and corrupt system will be faced with a storm of fire that only a few could understand, right? I happen to have some children in the front row. They understand. In fact, my one boy, stand up, Eric. I think he got more subpoenas than any man in the history of our country. So unfair. Al Capone, you all heard of the great gangster? Al Capone got far less. Billy the Kid got almost none. Jesse James, no. Eric Trump got more subpoenas. He's a PhD in subpoenas. They come from Congress. And I appreciate the job you do and the abuse that you've taken. I really do. And it hasn't been a joyride for our great First Lady either. It hasn't been a joyride. Stand up, honey. I go home and she says, they do love her. I go home and she says, you look angry and upset. I say, just leave me alone. Hasn't been the easiest thing, but she's been a great First Lady and people love her. We will be resisted by the combined forces of the establishment, the media, the special interests, the globalists, the Marxist radicals, the woke corporations, the weaponized power of the federal government, the colossal political machines, the tidal wave of dark money, and the most dangerous domestic censorship system ever created by man or woman, the most dangerous system we've ever had. We will be attacked, we will be slandered, we will be persecuted just as I have been. I mean, I have been, but many people in this room have been. But we will not be intimidated. We will persevere. We will stand tall in the storm. We will march forward into the torrent. And we, in the end, will win. Our country will win. We will win. My fellow Americans, we will join together and reverse this staggering American decline, and it is staggering indeed, and we will again restore the spirit of our nation. And then we must build and raise up a legacy that will stand without equal in the entire history of the world. With your help, we will create communities where our children will grow up safe and strong, and a nation where they will grow up free, prosperous, and well. We will reestablish the principles of hard work and merit and end the scourge of homelessness that is plaguing our beleaguered Democrat-run cities. We will heal our divisions and bring our people back together through incredible success. We will defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We will expand the frontiers of human knowledge and extend the horizons of human achievement. And we will plant our beautiful American flag very soon on the surface of Mars, which I got started. But we need everyone involved. We need everyone's help. We need to look out for one another. We need to be friends. And we need every patriot on board. Because this is not just a campaign. This is a quest to save our country. Talking about saving our country. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I am asking for your vote. I am asking for your support. And I am asking for your friendship and your prayers of this very incredible but dangerous journey. If our movement remains united and confident, then we will shatter the forces of tyranny and we will unleash the glories of liberty for ourselves and for our children and for generations yet to come. America's golden age is just ahead, and together we will make America powerful again. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America strong again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. We will make America glorious again. And we will make America great again. Thank you very much. God bless you.